Okay, hi there guys. This is a really short tutorial to show you how to create a 3D layer in After Effects and also to move the layer in 3D space and to animate the layer in 3D space. So first I'll get After Effects going. I'm going to set up a new composition. I'm leaving it at 1280 by 720, 24 frames per second, 10-second duration. That'll be fine. Click OK. Oops, I'll just set it to single view. Okay, so moving quickly, the first thing I'm going to do is to create a type layer using the type tool. Move that into view. So currently we're working in two-dimensional space where we only have a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. Okay, that's 2 dimensions, horizontal, vertical. I'm going to change this layer now to a 3D layer. So we do that on the timeline here, down here. We've got a variety of buttons, and you can see the cube button, and it has a button, a corresponding button on the layer. So if I click that on, this layer is now a 3D layer. And you can see in the composition window, we have a different looking control handle here attached to it. And we can see that it has a green axis, Y, and the X axis, red, and that's our traditional 2D space, X and Y. You notice that when I grab one of these with my select tool, I can only move it on that axis. But we have this blue one here which is actually pointing towards us. That's the Z axis. So if I grab the Z axis, that actually lets me move the layer backwards and forwards in space, or towards us or further away. Okay, now that may not look immediately apparent, but if I say go to my rotate tool here, my rotation tool on the toolbar, and what I'm going to do is now rotate it around the Y axis, and you can see when I do that, you can see we're actually swinging the type layer around in 3D space, and you can see it looks a bit more 3D. Okay, so I'm just using the rotate tool, and I'm rotating it around that Y axis, the vertical axis. Likewise, I could rotate it around X, okay, and I could rotate it around Z. Okay, so now that I have my layer rotated, I can see that it's 3D. I could go back to my select tool here, and I can move it along that Z axis, the blue line, okay, or along the X axis, this one, or along the Y axis. So once I've positioned or set up my layer correctly, I can animate it along any of those axes, and I can animate its rotation and position in 3D space. So for instance, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to rotate it a little bit more so we've got kind of this type of effect here. And I'm going to move it way off down here. Okay, so I'm positioning it there. My time marker is at the beginning of my timeline. I'm going to open the position property, set the stopwatch, move to the end of my composition, my select tool, and carefully selecting the X axis again, I'm going to drag it so that it's looks like it's coming towards us at an angle. And there's our animation. So a layer animating in 3D space. If we open the rotation property, we can see we have an X rotation, a Y rotation, and a Z rotation. And that's the same as using the rotate tool and clicking on any of these axes. We can do that in here. Okay. And the orientation lets us do the same thing with an all-in-one control. And that's the basics of creating 3D layers in After Effects. Switch the 3D switch on and then use your select tool to position the layer along one of the three axes, X, Y, and Z, and use the various controls and your keyframing controls to animate it.